country feel left out, isolated, marginalized, not looked after, then you cannot have a cohesive country. So I can see the centrality of what this ministry does with your mandate as a committee. The third thing I want to say, Honorable Chair, is we have a number of challenges across our country. Number one, terrorism remains a serious threat. And although we have not had an attack for some time, we are fully engaged on a daily basis, and we've had numerous instances of detection and thwarting of attempts to attack our country. We don't publicize these things because it's in the national interest to make sure that we don't create public anxiety. But I want to take this opportunity to say that in our security radar, the threat of terrorism remains a high priority. And I want to commend our officers who have done a great job, especially those who are serving in the front line in the areas where some of these threats come through. And you know, it just takes one successful attack to cause us enough pain and damage. But I am happy to report that the counter-terrorism measures that our country has put in place for the last 4 or 5 years are working. And I commend the security agencies, especially the formed units who are in the front line of fighting against the threat of terror. We've had a few cases of IED explosions affecting our officers. We've lost 1 or 2 officers, and this is unfortunate. But I also want to say that we have thwarted and detected and neutralized numerous threats, especially around the border areas. The affected areas, Honorable Chair, is the Boni Enclave, that is Lamu County, and parts of Tana River. The Boni Enclave area remains a hotspot for us, and area under great surveillance on the threat of terror, but also northern eastern Kenya, counties of Garissa, Mandera, and Wajir. So far, so good. In fact, with the push down of Al-Shabaab militants south of Somalia, in the new initiative now, which is being spearheaded by communities in Somalia with the help of police, the terror groups and militant groups are at their weakest now. And what we are doing now to keep our borders safe is to ensure that push down from Somalia doesn't allow militants, terror groups, or their sympathizers to enter into our territory. And we have thwarted so many attempts. Our counter-terrorism roadblocks have yielded a lot of fruits, especially over the December season, especially the counter-terrorist barrier at Archer's Post, and the one in Kanyonyong in Kithure, and the one that is manned by KDF from Garissa, Tana River, and into Malindi and Mombasa. So on that front, we are on top of things, and I credit our security agencies, especially the formed units, as well as the operation of the Security Laws Amendment Act of 2014 that have allowed us to have a multi-agency approach in counter-terrorism. The second threat in our hierarchy of needs is the threat of livestock rustling and banditry in many parts of northern Rift Valley and upper eastern. The counties of Isiolo and Marsabit in upper eastern, the counties of Turkana, Samburu, Laikipia, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, and West Pokot in northern Rift Valley. This problem, Honorable Chair and members, has been with us for nearly 1 century. It it has assumed a life of its own. The lives that have been lost just at that part of the country, the commercial and monetary damage to our citizens, the suffering, the destruction of social amenities is immeasurable. It's huge. And for us, I think during my last 120 days or so in office, I have spent 70% of my time in office in those areas and northeastern. And that, Mr. Chair, is to prove to you what I said at the beginning, that we must spend more time as government addressing the more needy areas of our country if we have to have a united and cohesive country. And because the challenge, like I've said, the threat of terror and the banditry and livestock stealing problem has affected the northern part of Kenya, I have spent most of my time trying to work with the teams and my colleagues in the ministry to make sure that we tackle that problem. The desire of the Kenya Kwanza administration is to make sure that we eradicate livestock rustling and banditry permanently. We are determined. We will manage. We are not under any illusion that it's going to be a small issue, because it's a problem which has been there for nearly a century, as I have said. There is a mixture of politics and culture and a bit of indoctrination and business, you know. So it's commerce and politics and culture and indoctrination combined to provide the kind of toxic environment in those areas. But we are determined and we will succeed. As you are aware, we have mapped out certain areas in northern Rift Valley which we have gazetted as disturbed and dangerous. And there is an ongoing operation, under Article 241, paragraph 3B of the Constitution, read together with Section 31 of the KDF Act, as well as Section 8 of the Public Order Act, CAP 56, and Section 106 of the National Police Service Act. We discovered that for us to make progress in that front, we must first silence the guns. And you cannot talk about development and the long-term solutions that we are very keen in rolling out until first the guns are silent, because you can't send a contractor to build a road in a place where bandits will kill them or kill the workers. You can't send a water engineer to put water pipes or to do a dam if their security is not safe. So these 6 areas, why we isolated them is because it's not the only place where cattle rustling and banditry is happening. Is because these areas are unique in the sense that whenever these terrorists commit their heinous crimes, they retreat to these areas, and the accessibility to these areas is very, very difficult because of terrain, because of lack of road and other infrastructure, telephone network. The terrain is completely inaccessible, especially for land troops and land security agents. And even to get at these hideouts, we will need air support and an air campaign. And that's why we had to gazette these 6 areas. And I can report we have made a lot of progress. And Mr. Chairman, we are not in a hurry. That operation might last, I don't know how long, maybe a few months. But we are not going to withdraw the presence of security agencies even after the operation. That deployment is going to be permanent as long as Kenya exists. We will keep those troops there forever as a way of ensuring that once the guns are silent, we can now map out that area and ask ourselves, what are the long-term solutions of ending this problem? How do we build roads? How do we put on social amenities? How do we provide water? And therefore, as much as we have an operation ongoing, we have another discussion at the sideline with the relevant ministries to allocate us a certain quota or percentage of development projects in roads, water, education, health, purposely for these areas. And there will be a little more than the usual allocation, because these areas have been left out in these amenities for a long time. And we are having that discussion. I can give one example, Mr. Chairman, that, for example, the first 100 dams that Kenya Kwanza government is going to roll out under the water purchase agreements, we are going to make sure that out of that 100, a quota which we are negotiating with the Ministry of Water goes to the areas that are affected by banditry and cattle rustling, the areas in the north. And we reinforce those projects, and there will be a bit more than usual because we want to tackle the long-term issues. But first, as I've said, Chair, the guns must be silenced, and we have no apologies to make. And we are not going to have a country where part of our people are being killed by criminals every day. Some of our security officers have been brought down by criminal fire. And I have committed to the country. I am going to be the minister who will lead the team that will focus on this issue and finish it. And I think I do not have a greater national responsibility, making sure that we open the Kenya of the North and integrate its security with the security of the rest of the country. And I'm not saying that the rest of the country doesn't have security challenges. We have other security challenges. We have urban crime. When we came into office, Nairobi was having a lot of urban crime. We have managed to stabilize that problem. And also let me point out that, Chairman, we are also keen to make sure that we don't concentrate too much on that area at the expense of exposing other countries, because criminals are also not fools. They think that maybe if we are focused in a particular area, we have abandoned our attention to other areas and other security threats. So we are still seized of other national security challenges, like drug trafficking and psychotropic substances, like the threat of illicit alcoholic drinks and drugs that are ruining our children. But first and foremost, that banditry problem will end. And it's not just about the current operation. It is about the mixture of the current operation and the long-term stabilization that we have in place. Let me also say, Chair, that we are also considering adding a few more areas in the list of the disturbed and dangerous areas. We are consulting the stakeholders. We might have to amend the this. Let me also say, Chair, that I have seen a bit of public debate, which is healthy, because in a democracy you expect everyone to be oversighted by other institutions. So we've seen issues around the deployment we've done in the north. That deployment, under the sections of the law which I have cited, does not require parliamentary approval. It requires the minister to report progress to Parliament after the deployment, as opposed to if the deployment was under Article 241 3C. If you use paragraph C, then you have to get prior authorization of Parliament. If you use paragraph B, then you don't require, but you report to Parliament after the deployment. Having said that, Honourable Chair, we are also aware there is a unique problem in Isiolo Marsabit, which is a bit unique because that's why we need a solution tailor-made for those two areas. The problems there are different, especially Marsabit County, where the problem is internal. is internal within the communities there. And therefore, in the next 1 month, we'll be announcing very drastic measures for Marsabit to get at the bottom of that problem in Marsabit, where every day we are receiving reports of death, and the problem appears to be internal from among the communities, as opposed to the other parts of northern Kenya where it's raiders from this community outside the county versus another community. So we will be announcing some unique measures different from what is happening in the other parts of northern Kenya for Marsabit, and it will also affect a bit of Isiolo. Other than that, I think we are tightening up our grip on what the challenges around Tana River and Mandera counties, as I have said, in the counter-terrorism effort. And Chair, I think that's where we are in terms of that effort. We remain focused. We remain conscious that for this country to remain united, every part of Kenya must feel that they are truly part of this country by all scores, by all assessments. And therefore, for us in the security sector, we do not underestimate the challenge ahead of us, but I want to assure the people of Kenya, through you, Chair, that we will deliver. We will do whatever it takes. We will apply all the resources that are available. We will apply all the human resources that this country has. We will apply all the weapons that this country has in its possession, and we are acquiring even more weapons to make sure that our country is safe. The only reason why a modern country possesses the instruments of violence is to protect the 99% of good people from the 1% of people who are criminals and people who are lawbreakers. So that is the scope of things at the moment. And I think from your statement, you wanted me to address myself to that bit. Then there was two other issues. I've forgotten one, but I've remembered the other one. You had said that you would like the support of the Ministry of Interior to visit some of the areas that are hard hit by insecurity. We will facilitate and support that request if it is done in writing. First and foremost, we are advising all government officials from all arms of government who are visiting parts of our country that are facing unique security challenges, like where the operation is going on in the 6 counties, or northeastern Kenya, where we have a bit of bad issues. They must always liaise with our ministry so that we can support them by offering you a security itinerary, but also on request, because you are all serving the same people. If you want any logistical support to enable you to carry out your mandate, this ministry will support you, Mr. Chairman, and your committee, subject to a written report, a written request, so that we can plan together, and we wish you well. Other than that, because I've forgotten that the last issue, Mr. Chair, I want to say, as I said when I was being vetted in the National Assembly, I am a strong believer in our Constitution. I am a strong believer in our law. I am a strong believer in the institutions, all institutions created under the law, and particularly for me, as a Cabinet Secretary, I am conscious of my obligations under Article 153, which include submitting myself to the oversight authority of the 2 houses of Parliament. And therefore, any time this committee wants to engage with me, it should not be a struggle, because the law demands that I must cooperate with you. I must avail myself to the oversight authority of Parliament. The only request I will make as I end my remarks, Chair, is because of the nature of this sector, just a little bit of understanding so that we plan, because sometimes not sometimes, all the time, I have no diary. I cannot run a diary because the people who plan my movements and whereabouts are the criminals. They're the ones who decide where my services are needed. So I might wake up thinking I'm going to Arambe House, only to find myself going to Nadapal at the border of Kenya and Southern Sudan, or to Boni, depending on what has happened. And therefore, I just plead with your understanding, because I've already made my commitment that I have no option. I understand the law demands I must cooperate with you and submit to your authority. But given the unique challenges, I'll just request that I be accommodated where I cannot make it at best. Or rather, the worst case scenario, I'll just request to be given another slot when I'm not available. Otherwise, I'm happy to be here. And thank you, Chair, for giving me an opportunity to address your committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Waziri. I know you're also very busy, and as you said it well, that your programs are being organized by my friend from Zambur, from Turkana. Now, the things you said you forgot is any legislative and policy interventions that you would propose on the issue.
Chair, maybe before you allow the CS to respond to the question that you've asked, I want to congratulate the CS for the far he has gone in terms of addressing security issues. But maybe before that, because I know a number of Kenyans are waiting for us on this matter, bearing in mind that insecurity matters cause a lot of lack of development within the country. And we would like to know, because there is already an exercise that is being carried out by your office, the issue of disarmament. We want to know how far have you gone, how many weapons have you collected, and from which areas. And yeah, maybe I can put across that as we continue, because we feel we have a number of questions that we need to be attended, since members of this is a committee that is in charge of bringing the committees together. So please kindly, we will request you to elaborate on that, the issue of disarmament, and how far have you gone with that?
Permission, Chair, just on the same note. Waziri, you know this committee, our mandate is actually to oversight on all matters relating to national and inter-community cohesion. And I know the matter on disarmament is about conflict between two or more communities. So actually, while you're answering that particular question, we'd want to know, since in March 23rd, 2021, Rift Valley Regional Coordinator George Natembe announced a 1-month temporary suspension of the disarmament to give room for negotiation among leaders. So, but the key thing that Kenyans are asking is, on this current disarmament exercise, have we involved the communities? And is it transparent enough? Because there have been questions on some communities being disarmed and others are actually not participating in it. So maybe you can give us some comments on that particular issue.
Waziri, I think let him also finish. You know he's from Turkana and I'm from Marsabit. So we have some questions also. Yes.
If you allow me, I dispense with those, then I have another set so that I don't cloud my mind.
So proceed.
Yeah, I'll be brief, Chair. First, I just want to thank the members who have raised the issues and sought for clarification. Chair, you asked me legal and policy interventions. We would like to review the entire security legal framework through a miscellaneous amendment like the 2014 amendment law. So we are consulting, I've asked all the teams in the Ministry of Interior, especially the security-related teams, to come up with suggestions on which area we need to beef up, because we have seen the 2014 Security Laws Amendment Act, which was a controversial law, which ended up in court. Some sections were struck out for being unconstitutional. But what we forget as a country is that that law was and is extensive. And I take the honor of having participated in drafting parts of that law, which actually initially I thought would have come in form of a standalone bill, the Homeland Security Bill. But after consultations with the Commander-in-Chief that time, and the security agencies, it was decided, instead of creating a standalone law, the Homeland Security Act, we do an amendment of all the security laws and see how information sharing, multi-agency action. Point which I'm making, Chair, is that except the eight sections of that law that the court declared unconstitutional and struck out, the rest of the Amendment Act of 2014, which has so many is waters against terror. Very useful. So we are hoping, similarly, we look at the experience we have 8 years later and see what else we can do. So rustling thing and the kind of activities you're seeing in those areas, including Marsabit, your county chair. Those activities are nothing short of terrorism. Those are terrorists. They are no different from Al-Shabaab, ISIS, and all other terror groups. The activities there are breeding ground for terror groups. So we must escalate this discussion from the cultural discussion about this community stealing cows from another community or camels. It is terrorism. Over and above that, what is happening in Marsabit is the first step out of the 6 steps of genocide. That's how genocide is cooked. Because it's not cooked instantly. It's not instant food. Genocide, and I can say this because this is my area of academic expertise, genocide is cooked over time in stages. What is happening in some of stage 1 in the manufacture of genocide? What is happening in Northern Rift is no longer cattle rustling, it's not even robbery with violence, it's terrorism. It's terrorism. There is no culture, there is nothing else left. It's even beyond commerce. Because if a young man has gone to steal cows to pay dowry, if a young man has gone to steal cows to get money because they have been given a gun by a business person who wants to make money from cows, they will go and steal the livestock and deliver, and along the way they will hurt any threat that is standing between them and the livestock. That's all. That's my understanding of what a criminal in an ordinary situation, as I have described, would do. But when you see young boys with weapons, they go and breed cows, they succeed, and they find girls barely beyond puberty, young girls 12 years, 14 years, who have been grazing cows. They are not armed, they are not inhibited. These are armed, heavily armed bandits. And then they shoot down these girls. There is a bigger problem. It shows this fellow is not stealing cows, it is not commerce, it's not even culture. Because I am told by those who are familiar with those cultures that if you succeed, if you are a bandit, you are a criminal, you succeed in stealing cows, the best you can do to a girl is to capture and you turn them into a wife or something. But shooting them dead, unarmed girls, this is terrorism. And therefore we intend to review our law and treat the matter in Northern Rift Valley terrorism, and we will win. We will require the support of Parliament. And I know it's going to be very emotive, but I'm prepared to prosecute this matter until we get into the root of this matter. Now, I've been asked, Chair, to clarify on the current disarmament process. We have not begun. We are not in a hurry. I said we are not in a hurry. We haven't begun. We will begin shortly. What we gave is an amnesty of 3 days, which were given by the Commander-in-Chief. Those days elapsed, and they will not be extended, even for a day. There will be no extension. I want to assure the people of Kenya, Mr. Chairman, we will mop out all the guns, all illegal guns in the North Rift and other parts of the country where there is a proliferation of illegal guns. We will get the guns. One way or the other, we'll get the guns. Don't ask me how. We'll get the guns, and once we get all the guns, we will review our policy on NPRs. Because the reason we are encouraging NPRs is because of the very unique situation of proliferation of illicit arms in these regions. The only way to protect communities is through NPRs. And for the parts of the country where NPRs have not, we've not redeployed, remember there was a policy to disarm. We will deal with them so that no area feels exposed, including Marsabit, Mr. Chair. And we will be starting with that area around the mountain. Many of the illegal arms, and activities around that mountain will start very soon. I'll be visiting the area, and I'll be making some announcements very shortly. Now, Senator Oroba asked me how many, it's Senator Joyce Correll, how many arms we have got. 43 guns, 136 rounds of ammunition, 2 FRGs and 1 RPG. FRG is fragmented rifle grenade, and RPG is rocket-propelled grenade, which have been surrendered voluntarily. But we will get all the guns, all of them. All of them. We will get the guns. I'm finished, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Waziri. I'm really very much impressed. When you say the Marsabit and Rift Valley, these are terrorists, I agree with you. And I think Lomanen, Senator Lomanen, you can ask.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my friend, Professor Kindiki, first and foremost, congratulations. We have never been together since we were appointed. I also thank you for visiting County several, and I was very happy because when you visited, you saw the problem, you observed, you experienced, and you did good things. The only thing that I wanted maybe to clarify in terms of faith, Turkana County borders Uganda, borders southern Sudan and borders parts of Marsabit, which effects of Ethiopia also affect Turkana County. What happens with the current order of disarming anybody with illegal harm? What happens those people who are bordering, who are taking care of the boundary between Southern Sudan and Kenya, boundary between Uganda and Uganda and Kenya? What will happen to these people? Because when you visit there, the community, especially the NPR and the others who are there, they were really committed to ensure they collaborate together with the forces. The armed forces were there, they were working together. What happens now if they are disarmed? Maybe that clarification to have to clear that fear. The other issue, what happens? There is exit zones from Uganda to Kenya, Amdat, and the bandits, the people from West Pokot are dual citizen. When you declare disarmament or operation, they cross to Uganda. I was very much interested. Maybe we can hear with the strategy that you have, that those who cross to Uganda, maybe the Ugandan UDF for Uganda have arrested some or they have disarmed some. It is very important, because if we fail to do such, my community of Turkana County and these others will be at risk. And it's also my just advice is also to realize that maybe with this dual citizenship, those bandits who have the dual citizen who stays in Uganda and Kenya, when maybe there must be a source, someone who is sourcing them, who is financing them from the Uganda. Maybe that one I seek for investigation. You might have the information or you might not have. Finally, I visited the scene where in Kainuk, where the 4 vehicles were burned. The police officers, senior police officers, including SP for Turkana South, OSPD, Commanding Officer 1, RDU. I saw that scene. I was really perplexed, CS, because the vehicles were banned. This is government vehicles new, and the officers who were in the vehicle were killed. The uniform were taken, the ammunitions were taken, sophisticated weapons were taken. Where did they take the weapons? How do you expect these officers did not raid any cattle? They did not kill anybody. So I want to concur with you. The reason I support you that this is no longer cattle rustling. Those people who say cattle rustling, it is no longer cattle rustling. The only thing that I really wanted to know, apart from declaring these people as terrorists, Al-Shabaab, there is an aspect which they take advantage of, saying ratio of boundary. Because as we talk now, West Pokot people, I don't know, bandits or people, are inside 50 kilometers inside Turkana. So when you do disarmament, they are not in the area, they are inside Turkana, and they claim that that area is theirs. This is, of course, that's a problem that makes them to be very rude and make them to be careless. And finally, CS, what pains me a lot, your government and the government, our government of Kenya, we are here to protect life and property. So when a mayor, a citizen, kills the officers, kills the innocent children, kills the innocent women, pregnant, whatever, and even professionals, kills the way they want, and there is no action taken to an extent. The KDF that you deployed recently, even when they were preparing themselves a camp, they were already injured. So these people, what do we call them? Are they respecting really your government, the government? Are they respecting the government of His Excellency Ruto? They respect the government because they are dual citizens. They respect the other government. That one should be cleared, Bwana CS.
Thank you, Senator Lomanen.
Chair?
Yes.
Allow me, Chair, again to come again, and I want to say this because I still want to say insecurity in the country chases away tourism, chases away investors, it drags development, and I've been concerned. I don't come from these areas, but my colleague here comes from those particular areas. We have groups, the WhatsApp groups, where we discuss a number of issues. I remember it one day I shared with you, and the reason why I shared with you is because within the leadership themselves, there is infight, which also tracks down to the people, to the residents. Because if the leaders are fighting, you also expect the same from the electorates. Honorable CS, it's still this is my question, and I want to really humbly request that I don't know whether you have at one time had a meeting with these stakeholders, because I believe they know the sponsors, they know the causes of insecurity, they know these cattle rustlers. These are people within their communities, and it is always good and prudent if they are. The reason why I'm saying this is because some time, and if it will take some time, the people who will suffer are the Kenyans. For example, Honorable CS, a school, I want to know the status of a school called Ngelecha Primary, whether they are in school or at home. I want to know a status of school called Rugus, Laramoru, Ramcha, Bartalo, Murat, Bartalo Primary, Ramcha Primary, Laramoru Primary, Rugus Primary, Ngelecha Primary. These are some of the schools that need to know whether they are open or they are still closed. And if they are closed, and this disarmament exercise has not started, when this be open, and what are the conditions in these areas? Because I believe there is also another issue that the Kenyans are waiting for these things. There's another issue that has just happened last night, where this morning around 2 p.m., where someone was killed together with the kids. 1,000 votes were taken away. So I would humbly request to know what are some of the operations that are taking place, and what are the status of these areas.
Thank you, Madam Senator. Senator Chimera.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, Waziri, congratulations on emerging as the best CS as per the latest survey. I know you've done much more than that. Some of us in this other divide, we don't take with a lot of seriousness it deserves. Nonetheless, just 3 questions, Waziri. First of all, thank you for also appearing before us. We understand you're quite a busy man considering the docket you run. And I wish to urge you. We are in the process of ending our standing orders, so we hope to see you much more in Parliament. Question number 1 is on the question of human rights issue. I know in any disarmament exercise, sometimes the troops tend to be rogue. And from where I sit, we must still respect the question of human rights. I mean, me and you would agree, you literally taught me human rights law back then in law school. I don't know what is the government policy in ensuring, as we conduct this exercise, we are also alive to the fact that these criminals also have certain rights that they need to have it respected. Secondly is the issue of funding the whole banditry perspective. I'm sure some of us are sitting here today are literally responsible for this banditry as leaders. And some have been arrested and then they walk scot-free because they're able to afford the bail and bond terms and nothing happens to them. What is the government position in ensuring that leaders are taken into account? There has to be accountability on the part of leaders. Because we can't sit here and someone holds CS, yet we are the root cause of the problem. I mean, with politics, we know if we fund and abet banditry is when you get re-elected. And some of us are sitting here, not necessarily before you today, but we are leaders responsible for this. The last thing is on surveillance, Bwana CS. From my analysis of the way the government is handling this situation, it's a question of a knee-jerk reaction. Are we really doing any surveillance as a government? Is it that we have to wait for the event to happen and then the government retaliates? Or are we doing any surveillance? Basically, I am aware of sentiments by certain leaders that the National Police Service Commission is not properly equipped to do these surveillance programs. I don't know what's your take on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chimera. Bwana Waziri, I have some specific questions. It's going to be very specific. One, today morning, there's a report from Langalani. I'll read that for you. This is Counties Marsabit, Sub-County Langalani Division, Kargi, Sub-Location Kargi, 01-3-20. Subject is incident report. Today at around 2 o'clock, bandits from Gabra community attacked Dile Fora, Forende village. Fora means village outside Isafora. It means people are not in that village but outside the village. Were attacked at Korole area of Kargi sub-location in Kargi location and took away about 1,000 goats and killed a man and 2 children. 1 man seriously injured. Severe bullet injury on one Dinche Elemo, 34 years old. The following are deceased: Irkena Seita, 25 years old male. Deracha Kele, 7 years old young boy. And Kobocha Kodisa, 5 years old. Do you have this report? And if you have the report, what action are you going to take, Bwana Waziri? This is this morning. And the second question is, as you are aware, if you apply for civilian gun today, what they will do first is to register your gun. They profile it ballistically. They know this gun, when it's used somewhere, it will be identified. And on NPRs or KPRs, are you doing the same? I have even asked this question. I asked you in Nanyuki. That is number 2 question. Number 3. We have bandits on between Sorolibi and Merile. And what I know, it has subsided now. What are you taking permanent action that will stop these things for good? Question number 3. We have 17 police barriers between Isiolo and Moyale. 17. And this robbery happens between Sorolibi and Merile. Why don't you post these people, instead of having barriers, why don't they patrol on that highway so that it will be easy? Because the barriers are for minting money from truck drivers. Why don't you convert them to highway patrol so that it can be secure? The road from Moyale to Isiolo can be secure. Number 4 is in Lake Turkana. There's Lake Turkana Wind Power have got private army, over 200 private armies, armed with sophisticated weapons. Are you aware? If you are aware, why are you having private armies in this part of Kenya? Lastly, Waziri, I have only 2 questions. But you've launched Samburu, Mandera they have. When are you, give me a specific date, because people are asking us, when are you going to launch the NPR service in Marsabit? Please, if you can take a month, 2 weeks. Finally, Waziri, if you during Lenge's time, General Lenge's, General Mahmoud, the army and the police used to employ uneducated young men. And today, you are aware, this university graduate, Form 4, these people who live in Nairobi, they cannot walk distances. They cannot fight these bandits. Will you have a program? Can you think of a program how you can employ the Pokots, the Turkanas, the Samburus, the Borans, the youths without education, and then leave them, let them go and hunt these people down? Can you think of that also, so that we can have, you can have sophisticated weapons, yes, you can have drones and all those things, but if you cannot walk, in some instances they cannot even carry their guns, Mheshimiwa, you know. So what are you going to put in place so that we can have one-to-one, so that you can have somebody who can protect us well? Asante sana.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
To add what you are saying, so that the CS answers his questions holistically. Bwana Chair, Bwana CS, I forgot a very important issue. These bandits, yes, this is a point of information. These bandits, where do they get the ammunition? Where did they get the ammunition? Did they have factories there where they have? And if someone is funding, we have to establish, we have to establish who is funding. If this ammunition is for is it for the KDM? Is it for the Kenya government? Is it for Uganda? It is very important to know the source of the ammunition, so that we know when we take action, we know exactly where the sources of these ammunition comes from. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then there are schools, water points, because we built many schools in this Turkana County and even Marsabit. But now that these schools are devastated, they are destroyed, and the students, the pupils and the students are now at home, and the others in Nairobi are enjoying the junior, the whatever, and them are not enjoying.
Thank you, Senator Lomanen. CS, only one question. Drones, on the issue of drones. Can you be positioning drones in those areas like Turkana, Marsabit, so that it can be a bit effective? Santi.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to request, once I respond to this, once you excuse me, there is another meeting which started at 10, and I don't want to look disrespectful. Chair, the work ahead of us is not a light matter. Neither is it a one-man show. If there is only one person who had the capacity to finish these security problems that have hurt the country for so long, should have happened long time ago. So the matters that members are raising, the matters we are discussing, are so grave, are so complicated that it will take the effort of very many people, including yourselves as members of parliament. And I don't think there is a person with a silver bullet that will end a problem that has lasted for 100 years. But having said that, I want to reiterate what I said in the beginning. The William Ruto administration will end banditry in Kenya. I have the support of the president to make sure that it delivers the country from this shame. Other countries are discussing other things, technology, and, the next frontier for agriculture, how to take advantage of our natural resources. And I have kept on arguing, which I still do this morning. When I look at the future of Kenya 100 years from now, the future economy of this country will be sustained, stabilizing the vast areas north of our country that are quite endowed with resources but are not habitable. They are not habitable to movement. They are not habitable to host the populations. And the populations even living there themselves are under stress and under-resourced to be able to utilize those areas. The future of Kenya, a century from today, when none of us here will be alive, is in the north of our country. I have looked carefully at our country's history. I have looked carefully at how other countries have been able to make progress. Most of America in the west is desert. But today it hosts some of the biggest economic frontiers for that country. Why? Because 80 years ago, the American government decided to open up the so-called Wild West. That's why California today, the 8th largest economy in the world, sits in the desert. So this mentality about desert, that's where the future is. That the economy of this country 200 years from now, when our great-grandchildren will be dead, is there. That huge potential that can sustain this country for centuries is security first. Because as I've said, there is no security in that place, even if there is God. And I have very many other examples. Australia, 2/3 of Australia is desert. But some of the biggest infrastructure and industries in mining, etc., are in the south, in the western Australia, which is desert actually. So this idea that a place is dry, doesn't receive rainfall, and therefore is wasteland, is the wrong model which has kept us struggling over small space within our country. All of us are accumulated along the railway, the Mombasa-Malaba railway. If you look at the pressure, just both sides of the railway, that's it. The rest of the country with a lot of resources, but it's a no-go zone because of security. And it's also an economic policy, because all what has happened in Kenya for 60 years is a product of sessional paper number 10 of 1965, which exactly said what I have said, that concentrate development in the so-called high potential areas. And how do you define high potential area? It's an area which receives rainfall. That is wrong. Some of the most high potential areas do not rain at all. You have countries in the Gulf, there is no rain for 30 years, and there is no famine, there is no, there is no nothing. They don't ask for food. It will never rain. I don't think it will rain. So I think it's more of an economic model. And the Kenya Kwanza administration has determined that if we tackle this issue, we are securing the future of our country many, many, many years when we are not here. Having said that, Senator Lomenen has asked about the exit routes for bandits and criminals who are escaping to Uganda because they have relatives there and because they think we are doing an operation for 6 months and then we go back to Nairobi and they'll come back. We are in discussions with the government of Uganda. Last week, I requested my Principal Secretary for Security, Dr. Raymond Omolo, to go to Uganda, and he was together with my counterpart, the Cabinet Secretary for East African Affairs, because I was not available to travel. And they had high-level meetings with Ugandan colleagues, including 2 cabinet ministers, the Minister for Internal Affairs and the Minister for Karamoja Affairs. To defeat that cheap thinking by bandits that they can run to one jurisdiction and hide there for a few months and come back. I want to assure you, all bandits who escape our borders will not come back. Those areas will not be access to criminals. Number 3, the deployment that we have done, the massive deployment we have done in these areas will not be. So if the criminals think we are in a hide and seek game, they are running, they will come back. They will not come back. Want to run away. With regard to the kind of damage that bandits and criminals have caused us, we are horrified. Because they had lost young children, or girls actually. Girls who are just teenagers who are grazing, shot and but I want to invite my fellow citizens to be as horrified when an officer wearing the uniform is brought down by the gun criminal. Before then, we had lost the 42 officers in Barago in 2012. After that, I think around 2018, we had lost the 21 officers in Kapedo. And every time government reacts and retreats. This time round, we are not retreating. We won't retreat. We will populate that region with enough security deployments and stay there, develop the area, and stay there for good. Economic prosperity in the years to come. Mr. Chairman, I said this problem is a mixture of business and politics and indoctrination and terrorism. Because now, that problem now is no longer cattle rustling, it is terrorism. So the same way we are handling Al-Shabaab and ISIS is the same way we are handling these bandits. And because it's a mixture of all these things, some politicians are in the middle of this game for a long time. Therefore, I have decided I will work with all stakeholders, including politicians, to try and help us as a nation to resolve the issue. But I'm also aware that I'm going to fall out very badly with some politicians who are benefiting from this exercise. And I am ready. It's going to be very brutal. And it's not going to be about a politician from this party or the other party. I have the blessings of the Commander-in-Chief to deal ruthlessly with any political leader who is aiding, abetting, or supporting the terror in the north, even if they are in his political party. Even if they are in the opposition. You know, the easier one to deal with are the ones in the president's political party. But the ones in the opposition will start crying and talking about Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. I am not going to be drawn in that debate. As you have realized, for the last 120 days, I have not talked any politics. And I will not speak any politics. So I'm going to work with politicians because they are stakeholders, they are elected by the people, they can help in the solutions, but up to where they are within the law. If you fall outside the law, it doesn't matter. In fact, President William Ruto has told me that he is willing to lose political support and end this problem. If ending this problem will reduce his numbers in a certain corner, he said he will take that in stride and help the country. That is how serious we are. And I want to assure the people of Kenya, we'll win this battle. It's just a matter of time. We will win it. We will crush bandits. Many years later, when we are not around, banditry and the terrorism in the north will be taught in schools as part of history. Because it's very painful to wake up to some of the reports the chairman is reading out for me here. It's very painful. Those are not statistics. Those are human beings. Those are Kenyan citizens, taxpayers. Mr. Chairman, I want to invite the collective outrage and horror of the nation when we lose our officers when they are defending the rest of us. We lost some officers in Kainuk 3 weeks ago, including the sub-county commander, police commander of Turkana South, the OCS, the OCPD, were shot and are injured at the moment. They are at least 8 colleagues perished. And you know, the bandits is a bit of pride. But I want to assure them that pride and arrogance is short-lived. we will crush all, and they are going to be part of our history. You see, when a terrorist or a terror group or a terrorists kill a policeman, burn a police vehicle, it's a big score for them. But it's short-lived. And as I've said, we are not in a hurry. And we are not in a contest with anybody. Neither are we looking for popularity. We'll crush the bandits, we'll crush their sponsors, we'll crush their advisors. We will deal with them because this is about the survival of our country. It is nothing else. It's not politics, it is not culture, it is not anything else. Mr. Chairman, I agree with you, we need to up our game and use technology. I agree with you also, instead of having permanent roadblocks, picketing, which is the highway patrols, mobile highway patrols, with the technology can help us improve surveillance. We've tried with highway, which had some problems. In December, we thwarted quite a number of possible attacks in that corridor. We want to apply the same technology on the Moyale-Isiolo highway and the Kitale-Lodwar highway, which is facing similar problems. Technology and picketing, which is mobile patrols, and I'm sure we will do. That's better than even the practice of escorting vehicles, where you hold up lorries and pile them up and escort them. We will deal with the NPR request for Marsabit when we are on the ground. Soon I'll be going there. It's taken a bit of time, but as you're aware, it's difficult to be everywhere at the same time. The challenges are many. And Chair, if you allow me, I just blow my trumpet a bit. In the last 120 days, I have traveled more than any of my predecessors has ever traveled out of Nairobi, especially to places which were never visited. So I'm sorry to blow my own trumpet, but I'm told there is a former president of Uganda who was accused of blowing their own trumpet, and they retorted that there is nothing wrong with that because the trumpet is theirs anyway. so they can blow it. Now, Chairman, very quickly, on policy of having people may not have the academic pedigree, but they can help us in the security of our country. That is part of what we are considering under the task force on the reforms of the security sector. It's a good thing. It's about output. It's about output, as opposed to how many degrees you have. It's about output. If you speak a lot of English but you can't deliver results, then you are not helping us. We can take you to school, you help our children with English lessons, then we get the fellow who can bring down terrorists in the shortest period possible, even if they can't speak. Profiling NPR guns, we've done so. And I must caution the communities where we are approving NPRs to exercise civilian oversight in consultations and in collaboration with security forces so that those guns are not misused. Because if they are misused, we'll withdraw them. We've had one or two cases of indiscipline. We are treating directed that the when we mop us, because we will rethink 90% of the herders in that part of the country, and you can't blame them. They go herding their cattle with 2 guns. And there are 2 others hidden somewhere in the bush, just in case. Now, when the place becomes secure, you just need a stick, a walking stick or something. You don't need a gun any longer. Chair, I've been asked about human rights. At the risk of blowing my own trumpet for the second time, I have a general idea on what the law says about the balance between national security and human rights. Our Constitution has a Bill of Rights. That Bill of Rights provides for all rights to all people, including accused persons. But that Bill of Rights has an article called Article 24, which limits rights in order to promote other overarching national security is one of those national interests. And therefore, I am going to be the minister who will insist that any police officer who uses the weapon assigned to them to defend the country from dangerous criminals and terror groups, that officer will be defended by the government of Kenya and will not be harassed by anybody waving some human rights doctrine or some international treaty. But at the same time, I hasten to add that any officer who uses their weapon outside the law, outside the Constitution, unlawfully, that officer is on their own. We will actually support the prosecution of such officers. And our police officers know. I have had this debate, Mr. Chairman, of how I don't know we should use some minimum force. And I keep on asking myself, what is the minimum force to be applied on a terrorist, gun-waving terrorist who is ready to kill anybody on sight? And they have laid ambush on civilians or police officers shooting indiscriminately. What is the minimum force? That is the question we must answer. So our officers are professional, but they are also merciless. Before the terrorist destroys the life of an officer, that officer should have destroyed that terrorist, period. That's what happens in all democracies. Those guns are supposed to be context. Mr. Chair, my sister, the Senator Joyce Corril, has asked about some schools. All those schools are in Baringo South constituency. 2 of them are in Baringo North constituency. That area has been terrorized for a very long time. Over 21 schools, 16 in Baringo South and 5 in Baringo North, for quite some years because of banditry attack and people living in those areas. December directed me and to ensure that all those schools are and do whatever it takes to terror and open those schools, all of them. We have been able to open a total of 14 schools. And I know them. So, Senator, I'm not just giving a media story. It's only that the names are a bit difficult. Iko Harabal, Iko Kapi. I know all of them. Even the ones you have cited, I know where they are. I know where Ngelecha is. The reason why Ngelecha Primary School is not open is because the infrastructure was completely burnt down by bandits. So even if we want to open, there is nowhere for children to go. The schools that remain shut is because the infrastructure was completely destroyed. One of the schools actually was taken over by bandits, and the classrooms became the home of the bandits. One class 8, became the bedroom of the head of the family. Class 7 became the bedroom of the first wife. Class 6 became the bedroom of the second wife. Class 5 became the bedroom of the firstborn. And there is no greater level of impunity and lawlessness like that than that. The president has directed, and we've taken up the directive, that even the remaining schools must be opened. We have secured 100 million shillings, and me and my colleague, the CS for Education, are going to Arabal, to Ngelecha, to Mukutani, to make sure that we rebuild the schools that were burnt down and vandalized by bandits, so that next term the children can resume. But as we speak, we have opened 14 schools. We are even discussing with TSC to help us get additional teachers from the local community, because most of the teachers posted there are still not very comfortable and they keep on asking for transfers. And we are working with the members of parliament and the leaders of Baringo. In fact, I'm supposed to meet them this week. By next time, all the schools will be open. And I want to say this, that those schools will never be shut again. We will not shut them. Because if we allow a culture like that to thrive, we are preparing ground for worse security problems in the future for our country. So I know where Rugus is, and Ngelecha, and all those schools, and they will be reopened by next term when we rebuild. We'll accelerate the rebuilding of infrastructure to make sure by next term at least the children can start going back. Finally, Lake Turkana, you have told me, Chair, that there is a private army somewhere. I'd like to side by you, because if there is such a group, that's an illegal group, I'll disband it this morning. Yeah, just give me the details. We will scatter it today. I think other than that, Mr. Chairman, allow me to end by saying,
Chair, don't forget Loyangalani also.
Loyangalani is the incident. Yeah, the incident, I've seen the report on my way here, because that one normally, those even what you have received comes through our normal reporting. There's a normal daily report, security briefs, which I receive every day from 4 a.m. And so I had already seen it. I may not give an answer here, but I want to assure you that we will release all the government machinery to recover, first of all, the property that has been stolen. But as I said, in the next 3 weeks or so, we'll be announcing very drastic and permanent issues for Marsabit and parts of Isiolo, especially Marsabit and Isiolo North. What is cooking there could generate genocidal activity in the future. It's about communities and communities trying to, finish each other, and that's very dangerous in a modern country. So allow me, Chair, to say that this war for keeping our country's security is not about President William Ruto as a person or as president. It is not about the minister. It's about the survival of our country. Because I have seen, and I'm glad our friends from the media are here, and they have very good allies of democracy. They have helped this country. These media people have really pushed this country very far in terms of opening our country to modernity and to good practices and oversighting us and making sure that we do the right thing, those of us who are in the space of being public officers. But, Chair, through you, I would like the media as citizens of Kenya to reflect within their professional space, just to refresh, to reflect and ask themselves what is their role in this challenge our country is facing as citizens now. And within their professional space, they can decide the role they want to play. I don't want to pretend to know what their guides, what they do, because I'm not one of them. If it's a legal matter, I can claim a lot of authority. But on matters press, I am not an expert. I am yet to see a democracy anywhere, including the oldest democracies in the world, where national security is trivialized. I am yet to see some of the older countries, older than Kenya, in terms of having a democratic constitution, where serious national security issues are trivialized, sometimes politicized, sometimes, like what the terror groups are doing in the north. It has nothing to do with William Ruto. It was there in other administrations. It has always been there. And it is not about Kenya Kwanza. It is not about CS so and so. So you must ask yourself, when you write some of the things you write, whether you are glorifying the country or you are glorifying terrorists. And I said in Kithure last week, I want to repeat it here as I am. I am very resolute about the mission ahead of us. I'm just asking for all of us, wherever we are, private citizens, government officials, press, everybody, just declare on which side you are. Because you see, if you are glorifying terror groups, the fact that a bandit out in the air when the minister was around is a very big story. So who are you marketing? What are you marketing? Is that and it's funny, it looks funny. It makes maybe the minister look like, he's not having his act together. But minister is here today, tomorrow I will not be the minister. Another Kenya will be here. So choose. Until today, the horror and destruction that was caused by terrorists in 9/11 has never been shown by any press in America. You'll just see smoke and some general thing. They will never show you the graphic details of the over 5,000 people who are butchered by terrorists in 9/11. Because that is their country. So, it's fine. It's fine. But for me, there is no middle ground. It's either you are with us as we liberate the country, or you are with the terrorists, and you can choose. There's no problem. There's no problem. We will engage whoever is on the other side, even if it's a politician or a journalist, whoever you are, we engage with you so that we clear you before you clear us. Thank you very much, Chairman, and God bless Kenya. Thank you very much.
CS, let me recognize the presence of our friend, a friend of our committee, Senator Manzo, and also a member of this committee, Senator Mofaya. You can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. I'm happy that the CS found time to come and raise very pertinent issues. And I thought maybe away from the publicity that has been done to quite a number of areas, especially in the Rift and other parts of the North Rift, I am also a victim of. As you are aware, we have had issues to do with the banditry, especially the part of Arakanidi for the last 60 years, where people have lost livestock, people have lost lives. quite a number of times people have been even evicted from their homes. What arrangement is the government doing to make sure that that place is also as secure as other parts of the country? Because I have had a lot of focus, maybe in the Rift Valley, in Disarmament and other parts of Kenya, but concern about Tharaka, because Tharaka is part of this country and we have not had issues to do with it, because it's an historical issue that people have lost livestock, people have lost homes and lives and all these things.
Chairman, I'm familiar with the situation the Honorable Senator is raising. We are tackling this problem generally wherever it is. So when I refer to the Kenya of the North, it includes North Tharaka. Everywhere where people are killing people and taking their property in the name of cattle rustling, it's generally North. Tana River, Tharaka, Mwingi North, all those spaces up to the boundary with our neighboring country. So as we resolve this issue, I want to assure the Senator for Tharaka Nithi that problem in one of the sub-counties there called Tharaka North, that problem has come to an end permanently.
With your kind permission, only one issue for Waziri. Last weekend in Makueni, I buried a young man who died together with other dab. And I understand that the police are asking for the equipment which detect the land has, but our regular police don't have. This weekend we have two others who have been killed at the same area. One will be buried in Machakos. What are you doing about this particular equipment? And understand it's not very expensive, so that you can equip the police with the same equipment.
It's a good question. When we were personnel carriers, drones, gunship helicopters, and all manner of equipment, including night vision equipment that we require, and the personal protection equipment. To the credits of the previous administration, in 2014, other than passing the Security Laws Amendment Act of 2014, which I have said went a long way in helping the country to where it is now, that administration, the President Uhuru Kenyatta administration in 2014, also initiated a yearly 10 billion shillings police equipment modernization program. And for several years it went on okay until around 2019. Every year there will be 10 billion just to make sure that we have APCs for our officers serving in those areas and what have you, and personal protection equipment and mine detection equipment, drones and so forth. But what has happened over the years is that 10 billion allocation was gradually reduced by the National Treasury from 10 billion to 8, then to 6, then to 4, then to 1 billion. Last year it was 1 billion, and when the budget cuts were done, removed it 200 million. But we are happy, we have persuaded government to see the gravity on the need for troop protection and force protection of our officers, and that's why now the government is spending 20 billion shillings to improve it.
So, Bonasius, I think we'll allow you now to go. And thank you very much for your presentation. Asante sana.